Hello everyone, this is the 5th Ethical Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Palm here with my wife and everybody online. And tonight we're going to continue our study on the spheres of light and life. We're on section 4, that's page 626. Let me get down here on the other computer. Let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Tim, would you pray for us to start us out here while I find the right slide here? Or not. Y'all bear with me a second.
Okay, you want me to pray?
Yes, please.
Dear Mother and Father God, I know I'm never alone. You are always with me, my soul, my identity. That says, I am I to me is an eternal gift from God, the great intelligence. I can never lose myself because this self is a part of God.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, let's get started. Tim, would you like to read the first paragraph of section 4?
Section 4, Administration Readjustments. In the successive stages of settled existence, the inhabited worlds make marvelous progress under the wise and sympathetic administration of the volunteer core of the finality. Ascenders of paradise attainment who have come back to minister to their brethren in the flesh. These finalators are active in cooperation with the Trinity Teacher Sons, but they do not begin their real participation in world affairs until the Morancha Temple appears on earth.
Okay, so after the Morancha Temple appears, when we reach light and life, there's a whole volunteer core of finality that come to the planet, or volunteers are assigned to the planet, and they work in cooperation with the Trinity Teacher Sons, all right, and help manage the administration of the planet after we've reached light and life. And these are the sort of things that we'll be able to do when we become finalators. Okay, when we make it all the way to God the Father, and we become finalators and go out into the universes and start working, right, in the different planets.
Hey Rush, what exactly is administration?
It's everything to do with running the planet itself, okay? And if you think of Calagasta, the planetary prince, and the 100 that came with him, and the whole corps of angels and support personnel, they are the administration of the planet. And this is the job that the Corps of Finality and the Trinity Teacher Sons will assume and help out with the management of the planet. So right now our manager or sovereign of our planet is Machavincha Melchizedek. He's the vicegerent sovereign for Michael, because Michael is our planetary prince, right, along with being the sovereign of our local universe.
That's really very impressive.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. Upon the formal inauguration of the planetary ministry of the Corps of Finality, the majority of the celestial host withdraw, but the seraphic guardians of destiny continue their personal ministry to the progressing mortals in light. Indeed, such angels come in ever-increasing numbers throughout the settled ages, since larger and larger groups of human beings reach the third cosmic circle of coordinate mortal attainment during the planetary lifespan.
And that's why more of these seraphic guardians come, right? Because when you reach the third cosmic circle, or the third psychic circle, then you're automatically assigned what? 2 seraphim, or 2 guardians of destiny, okay? And Sanabim and Cherubim also as their assistants. So as more and more people reach that third cosmic circle, more and more seraphim come to the planet to become personal guardian angels. Now, beings before that are what? Under group custody of the guardian angels, right? You might be in a group of 10 or 100 or 500 under a guardian angel assigned to you till you reach that third cosmic circle. And then you have a full-time guardian angel that watches over you.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
When they say the word psychic, are they really referring to soul circles?
No, they're talking about progression, Tim. More
So
than
the
anything.
word psychic isn't somebody that you phone in or
No.
reads tarot cards?
Has nothing to do with that.
That said cosmic, though, it didn't say psychic.
They say cosmic in this particular paragraph, but they use cosmic and psychic interchangeable, just like they use, let's go back to paragraph, just like they use seraphic guardians of destiny, and they also call them guardian angels, right? It's the same thing.
So what does the word psychic mean?
That means it's the reason they use cosmic here interchange with psychic is because cosmic is an awareness of your place in the universe and your awareness of your progression along the plan of God. Okay, so it's how high you understand the plan of God and the will of God in your life, basically.
Yeah, I can just hear the beginners. They're like, oh, there's psychic stuff in here, huh?
No, nothing like that. All right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Did you call?
Yes, please.
Okay, I can barely hear you. Okay, this is merely the first of the successive administrative adjustments which attend the unfolding of the successive ages of increasingly brilliant attainment on the inhabited worlds as they pass from the first to the seventh stage of settled existence.
So they're setting us up here for the seven steps of becoming to the seventh part of the age of light and life, right? All right.
I'm waiting for the brilliant attainment.
That's yet to come, right? Probably not in our life. All right, dear, would you take the next one?
1. The first stage of light and life. A world in this initial settled stage is being administered by 3 rulers. A. The planetary sovereign, presently to be advised by a counseling Trinity teacher son, in all probability the chief of the terminal core of such sons to function on the planet. B. The chief of the planetary core of finalators. C. Adam and Eve, who function jointly as the unifiers of the dual leadership of the prince, sovereign, and the chief of finalators.
Okay, so that's basically in the first stage of light and life we have 3 leaders that work together, right? The planetary sovereign, in our case, that would be whom? That would be Machiavellian Melchizedek, right? And then the chief of the planetary core of finalators, and we have no idea who this is, but this is a mortal like us that's gone all the way to the Father and come back. And then Adam and Eve. Now we don't have our personal Adam and Eve any longer, do we? So who will take their place? This will be the job of Adam and Eve's children when they were here on earth. That's why the Most Highs have them held in reserve. Okay? So when the children of Adam and Eve that were loyal, stayed loyal, that were taken off the planet, when they took Adam and Eve off the planet, they basically took them to the constellation headquarters, and the Most Highs have them held in reserve for this particular purpose. They will come back as the physical head of the planet, okay, along with these 2 other beings.
So, Roger,
Yes,
when you say they'll come back physically,
yes.
you mean like before when Adam and Eve came here?
It'll be just, they will be given physical bodies before, just once again, because they will be the physical head of the planet. considered the physical head of the planet. So the humans have to be able to see him. And for the humans to be able to see him all the time, then they'd have to be humanized, right?
So it'll be done like as before.
Yeah, as before.
Same procedure.
Yeah, same procedure, but the difference is this Adam and Eve will not be defaulting because, number one, they've already been tested through their mother and father, and they stayed loyal. Number two, they will not be, their mission will not be the uplifting of the races, right? Uplifting our blood. So that will not be their purpose here any longer. So it will be a different mission.
Okay, so obviously by then our planet will be in the circuit once again.
Yes, when we reach light and life. Yeah.
We'll no longer be in quarantine.
We will no longer be in quarantine. And we will probably be out of quarantine, Rodney, well before this point, I would think.
And then also,
Because soon as Lucifer and the rebellion is totally adjudicated, we'll become out of quarantine anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously the tree of life will come from Intentia again.
Yes, or some form of it. I would think so. Yeah. Because this Adam and Eve, when they come back to the earth, they would go on continuously, right? And the only way they can go on continuously is the sustenance from the tree of life, right?
And the original Adam and Eve, they are already, because of what took place and everything, they're actually ascended beings now.
Yeah, they're on their
They're on the
ascension
ascension
plan,
plan,
so they
so they're-
they wouldn't be eligible to come
No.
back and take the place again. Right. Okay. I guess I'm not, right? Acting as interpreters for the seraphic guardians and the finalitors are the exhausted, probably true, exalted and liberated midway creatures. One of the last acts of the Trinity Teacher Sons on their terminal mission is to liberate the midwayers of the realm and to promote or restore them to advanced planetary status, assigning them to responsible places in the new administration of the settled sphere. Such changes have already been made in range of human vision to enable mortals to recognize these heretofore invisible cousins of the early Adamic regime. This is made possible by the final discoveries of physical science, in liaison with the enlarged planetary functions of the master physical controllers. Two things in this paragraph that I want to point out is really interesting. First, it talks about the midwayers being liberated. What does that mean? That means they can go on to their ascension plan if they choose to, right? But it also says here, or to restore them to advanced planetary status. Why would that be? They're on advanced status because the midwayers, being children of the original Adam and Eve and the Calagasta 100, are above human. They're midway between human and Morontial, right? So they're already in advanced status, right? That's what they're talking about, this restore, okay? And then it goes on to tell us that in the future we'll make final discoveries in physical science in liaison with the enlarged planetary function of the master physical controllers. This has already happened in a sense. I talked about this a little bit last time about the FLIR cameras, right? A FLIR camera will pick up beings that we cannot see sometimes. And shows like Ghost Hunters and things like that try to tell us that they're ghosts, but I personally believe that they're probably angels and midwayers is what they're picking up. Because we know humans are not allowed to return to Earth, and once you die, you have no presence on this planet, right? We know those two things. So there are no ghosts, right? There's no such thing as ghosts. As they say in Ghostbusters, I ain't afraid of no ghost, right? So
And the sound would be distorted because we're not there where we
we're
can
not,
actually
and
understand.
the frequency,
So
we're, yes.
Yeah, the frequency would seem odd and strange and spooky and scary
Exactly.
and stuff.
Exactly. There's nothing to fear on this planet. Nothing whatsoever. You know? So anyway, but they're talking about the master physical control is adjusting the human range of vision, one. Also, our physical sciences have made adjustments to be able to see them, and that's already happened in the fleur.
Well, even with
Right.
the Hubble telescope, I
The
mean,
Hubble telescope changed the whole game.
we
didn't it?
we can see things that we never were able to see before.
Yeah. The cosmology in this book, if the Hubble telescope was created right about the time of this book, right? And the interesting thing is, it's like as soon as someone discovered how to make the Hubble telescope, it's like they decided it's time for a revelation, because these beings are going to have in a short period of time, this blast of new cosmologic area that they'll be able to see, you know. And before this time, we hadn't been able to, right? So it's kind of interesting.
So Roger, have you ever seen any pictures from this camera you're talking about?
Yeah.
In
yeah.
other words, what forms? Are they in human form?
They're in human forms. It's real fuzzy, but it's definitely you can see 2 arms and 2 legs, a head, and beings that can walk around.
Yeah, and
So-
I actually saw a picture of one, and I was with my daughter and her husband, and it was just amazing because it's like it was like they were walking and they had like clown feet because
Yeah.
their feet were so big. You know, I mean it. You know,
You never know what to. You know, they may look close, very close to us because they're our brothers and sisters' ancestors,
Yeah.
right?
Well, did it appear like they had clothes on?
yes.
Yeah, they appear that they
have
they're
something
wearing
on.
have
Some
something on.
substance.
You can't see detail. You see more of an outline and the movement.
And it's
right.
almost like we caught them and they.
Yeah,
They
and
weren't-
when they've been recorded, as soon as they realize they're being recorded, they almost
They
disappear.
did. It was just
they
a,
just
a
gone
moment,
in
a
an
moment.
instant.
Yeah.
So they don't like to be recorded. They're not supposed to be recorded. So I think the ones that we've had privilege to see are more accidents than anything.
Yeah.
The most I've seen was on Ghost Hunters. You know, I was curious when that show came on, so I watched it through a season. And you know, I'm sitting there looking at it, and I almost wanted to call them and say, "You're not talking to ghosts. You're not finding ghosts. These are beings that are on this planet." You know. So anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, let's keep going. Tim, I believe you're up.
The system sovereign has authority to release midway creatures anytime after the first settled stage, so that they may humanize in the Morancha by the aid of the life carriers and the physical controllers, and after receiving thought adjusters, start out on their paradise ascension.
Now notice here it says humanize in the Morancha. Do you see that? Why would they not humanize as physical beings? Because they're above physical beings. They're in between
Maybe
physical
regressing.
and Morancha,
Yeah.
right? So their next step would, of course, be Morancha. And the life carriers give us the vessels or the bodies for our Morancha body. And then as soon as they get their Morancha bodies, they receive thought adjusters, right? It's interesting that the midwayers do not have thought adjusters while they're on this planet like humans do, isn't it? So they're on their own. They have to make the right decisions on their own while they're here.
So Roger,
Yes,
in other words, the midwayers will receive Morancha bodies,
right. Just like we do.
and then they'll get a thought adjuster.
Then they'll get a thought adjuster, and then they'll go on the ascension plan right along with us. So in your classes, as you go through the Morancha training spheres, you will have Morancha midwayers, former midwayers in your classes with you,
Why is
all
it?
the way to
I'm
paradise.
sorry. Why is it though that they would have to wait so long to to reach this point, whereas we have one simple life here, sometimes very short, and we would start on the ascension plan, but how we can't possibly be on the same level, be the same.
No, but
attending
they're
the same-
created midway between human and Morontia.
Right.
They're created that way, right? Actually, they have a benefit over us. Rather, they're not being penalized because it's longer. They're being actually rewarded for this long service because they gain experience that we can't even imagine being on this
So
planet.
they have to be much higher than us.
Of course, when they get to the Morontia spheres, the
They
planet,
must soar
they will
because
soar because
they
they've got.
put in all this time. And
Can you
we
imagine
haven't.
the wisdom these guys must have
I
after
can't even
Lord.
imagine. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
that
Like
whole?
the history.
Yeah,
Yeah, all the history. I mean, it's just.
yeah. If you
Hey Roger, I had a question for you.
Sure.
I'm going to read you something. It says the warp of the Morontia is spiritual, its woof is physical. What does that mean? What are they talking about?
Oh Lord, I could not give you an answer for that, Tim,
So
without.
spiritual would be godlike, but then the woof is physical. So what, a physical body?
Yes.
A Morontia body?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
So
best.
just like, intervening level between Morontia as a physical and a spiritual, right? A material and spiritual.
Yeah, there's an in between, because you got for instance, the midwayers. They're not physical and they're not Morontia, right? So in essence, they're almost more closer to spirit beings, aren't they? Because they're in between the two. So you could think of them being a totally different frequency of existence than we are, and that's probably why the 4 camera could pick them up, is because it's a frequency of recording is adjustable, right? So that's the only explanation I could give you on
See,
it.
to me, there's such a vastness in who they are, and the period of time they're actually here on the earth
Yeah,
versus us.
yeah. We're talking about hundreds of thousands.
I
of
know.
years.
So it doesn't equate. It doesn't. I can't.
Okay, now keep in mind though, I'm gonna blow y'all's mind. When you get to the Morontia sphere, time is almost of no essence, right? Because you have all kinds of time. It's not like this life. This life, we're always hurried to do something, right? We know everything is in order. We go day to day to day to day, and shortly after a few days and a few years, we're dead, right? So we're always rat racing to this goal of death, right? But after we leave this body and we get in the Morontia form, there's no goal of death any longer. So the progression you make through the Morontia spheres and through the different stages of spirit being can take millions and billions of years, and it don't matter one iota. You just go on the pace that's right for you individually. Right?
Right.
So your concepts of time expands beyond human imagination. It really does, because we live inside a box, a very defined area of time. When you get to the Morontia state, you no longer have that box, right? So you can take your time, experience your life, learn what you have to, and then just slowly move on to the next level.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
It's
it.
efficient.
I
Yeah,
really.
you become immortal. When do you become immortal? When you fuse. And you can fuse on this planet, right? So your concept of time can change in this physical
Instantly.
form instantly when you fuse, right? Okay.
Yeah, it is an issue of time.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
an
it is.
issue of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Millie, I think you're up again.
Okay, in the third and subsequent stages, some of the midwayers are still functioning, chiefly as contact personalities for the Fenalators, but as each stage of light and life is entered, new orders of liaison ministers largely replace the midwayers. Very few of them ever remain beyond the fourth stage of light. The seventh stage will witness the coming of the first Absonite ministers from paradise to serve in the place of certain universe creatures.
Okay, so the
That's interesting.
the midwayers eventually will be replaced by abstinators, okay? And the abstinators are a totally different type of being that originate from paradise, okay? So it's kind of interesting as we get closer to become part of the super universe, the closer we come to being in contact and administered by those who come from paradise, right? All right. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Sure, Roger. Number 2, the second stage of light and life. This epic is signalized on the worlds by the arrival of a life carrier who becomes a volunteer advisor of the planetary rulers regarding the further efforts to purify and stabilize the mortal race. Thus do the light carriers actively participate in the further evolution of the human race, physically, socially, and economically. And then they extend their supervision to the further purification of the mortal stock by the drastic elimination of the retarded and persisting remnants of inferior potential of an intellectual, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual nature. Those who design and plant life on an inhabited world are fully competent to advise the material sons and daughters who have full and unquestioned authority to purge the evolving race of all detrimental influences.
Now, people don't like to talk.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, they don't like to talk about this subject.
I
But
wonder how they're going to do that.
yeah, well, remember that we're talking about the second stage in light and life. By this time, a son or daughter of Adam and Eve has returned to the planet, right? So they pick up one of the jobs that Adam and Eve were supposed to take care of. When Adam and Eve were here, their stock or their children were supposed to eliminate all these things regarding retardation and inferior potentials of intellect, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual nature. Adam and Eve was supposed to do that, but since their mission was cut short, by the second stage of light and life, their son or daughter, the material sons and daughters, comes back, and at that point, it's their job to advise the life carriers and all the human race on how to do this, right? So eventually, all those influences that keeps the barbarianism, keeps war going, keeps physical retardation, all those things that make us ill and sick and things like that, those will be bred out of the future generations so they cease to exist.
So they can do that basically biologically. They can
Biologically,
tweaking
yes.
our DNA or
Now they're not going to come in and kill off a
Yeah,
bunch of people,
right,
right?
right.
That's not going to happen. But what they would do is limit their reproduction or change the way they have reproduction so that these things are not passed on. Now, do we know how to do this now? Actually, we do.
actually, yeah. I mean,
We do through our DNA, right?
We're learning, but there are churches and church people who prevent it.
That's exactly right, Melody. You got it right on the head. But the science is out there to do this now, right?
Science and church are at loggerhead.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so by the second stage of light and life, this is no longer a problem, is it? Because by this stage, everybody believes in one religion, one philosophy, that sort of thing. So there's not churches fighting each other to keep this from happening, right? Okay.
So, hey, Roger, these 7 stages are eventually building up to the final stage, the 7th stage?
Yes, it
And
is.
that's when the Urantia will enter light and life?
No, we enter light and life on the first stage.
Okay, on the first stage.
Yeah,
and
we
then
enter-
and then the 2nd through the 7th, what are they? They pretty much give
It's a
you the idea.
progression. It's a progression just like we go through the the constellation, the local universe, the minor sector, the major sector, the seven rings of Ramona, and eventually paradise, at persons, the planet does the same pathway in administration and eventually gets to being administered by people from paradise, right? So it goes through the same pathway as we do as humans.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Roger, this is called the system stage.
This is called the system stage, right?
Looking back at the
Yeah,
first
that's right. You'll notice with each progression we go on to the next one, right? Okay, we start out at the planetary stage, then we go to the system stage, right? And then eventually we go into the constellation, the major, minor sector, and eventually to paradise stage, right? Okay. I forget who's up. Rodney, I think you're up next.
No, I just read.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Well, Diane,
Okay.
I think you're up.
From the second stage on throughout the career of a settled planet, the teacher's sons serve as counselors to the Fenalators. During such missions they serve as volunteers and not by assignment, and they serve exclusively with the Fenalator Corps, except that, upon the consent of the system sovereign, they may be had as advisors to the planetary Adam and Eve.
Okay, so these teacher sons who can be counselors can advise the planetary Adam and Eve on the proper procedures and what to do, right? There's always help out there if you ask for it, right?
So, hey, Roger, once again, this list of 7, it's not talking about our planet. It's talking about, like you said, the constellations, the systems, the major and minor. Like, for instance, like Rodney just got done saying, number 2 says, the second stage of light and life.
Yeah.
It's not referring to our planet. It could be referring to...
It actually is referring to all planets.
Yeah, well, eventually,
All
our planet.
planets.
Because in Section 8 it says the second or system stage. So is it talking about the system stage?
No,
right
it's
now,
talking
or-
about the administration of the system stage. That's what they're talking about. The planet will be administered like it was part of the system.
That's
Right.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay? Alright. I guess I'm not, huh? 3. The third stage, light and life. During this epoch, the inhabited worlds arrive at new appreciation of the Ancients of Days. The second phase of God the Sevenfold, and the representatives of the super-universe rulers enter into new relationships with the planetary administration. So on the third stage, we can have a closer association with the Ancients of Days, which is the second part of God the Sevenfold. Who was the first part? That was the Creator's Son, right? So the third stage is equivalent to the second stage of God the Sevenfold. Okay? All right. Tim, would you take the next one?
In each succeeding age of settled existence, the Fenalators function in ever-increasing capacities. There exists a close working connection between the Fenalators, the evening stars, the super angels, and the Trinity teacher sons.
Now, I want y'all to conceive this. The more a planet gets closer and closer to on the stages of light and life, the more activity there comes from the Fenalators. So remember when Lucifer rebelled and he said way too much time was spent training ascenders on the universe administration. Remember that?
Yeah, because he thought it was like a waste of
He
time.
thought it was a waste of time. But here we see what the purpose of that is, right? Here we see that the Fenalators, or us, after we reach paradise, come back to the super universes and help administrate the planet. You see
So,
that?
Roger, that leads me to believe that, like, say, the first inhabited world in Nebadon that was created has not reached light and life. Or at the time of the Lucifer rebellion, it had not reached light and life.
Well, mayhaps him and Lucifer was not aware of
Well, that's true. Okay.
you know. All things are not revealed to the Lananandek sons at one time. You know, that's why they have the Melchizedek teachers to teach them also, right? Because the Melchizedeks are more informed than they are. It's a hierarchy thing, you know. And as you get better and better at your job, you're trained more and more and more, and you become more aware of more things. Right?
Wasn't it Satan's job to go around and check all the different planets and report back to Lucifer?
Yes, it was, Millie.
He would have reported if a planet had reached light and life.
He would have, but in our local universe, we're such a young universe, probably there weren't any planets that had reached light and life in our local universe, right?
So, hey, Roger,
And they
the more,
would not be aware of outside our local universe, right?
Exactly.
Right. Tim, go ahead. Sorry.
the more a planet is settled and light in life, the phenalators function ever increasing capacities. That means they pretty much they function a lot more, right?
Yeah, more and
When I-
more as we get closer and closer on the stages, right? Or as we climb the stages, right? All right. Tim, did you just read?
During this or the following age, a teacher's son assisted by the ministering spirit quartet becomes attached to the elective mortal chief executive, who now becomes associated with the planetary sovereign as joint administrator of world affairs. These mortal chief executives serve for 25 years of planetary time, and it is this new development that makes it easy for the planetary Adam and Eve to secure release from their world of long-time assignment during the following ages.
Now remember, on a normal planet, Adam and Eve is still on the planet, right? So, and that's what they're talking about here, as more and more of these beings, or the teacher sons and the phenalators, come to the planet. It gives the opportunity for the Adam and Eve that's been on the planet for hundreds of thousands of years to be released and start their ascension planet, right?
Hey, Roger, what does that word mean? How do you pronounce it? Quartets?
Quartet, you mean?
Oh, quartet. That's correct.
Okay, that's four beings. It's a quartet.
Oh, okay. It just means like quadruple, 4.
Yeah, just like, yeah, exactly. Just
Okay,
like
thank
four. Okay. All right.
So yeah, 25 years is really not that long at all.
Not that long. That's right. Okay, Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Sure, Roger. The ministering spirit quartets consist of the seraphic chief of the sphere, the super universe Sacharaphic
Sacharaphic, that's right.
counselor, the archangel of translations, and the Omniaphim,
Omnifem.
Omnithum,
You can call Omnifem or Omniafem, either one. Yeah.
who functions as the personal representative of the assigned sentinel station on the system headquarters. But these advisors never proffer counsel unless it is asked for.
Okay, so we have the Seraphic Chief, right? The Super Universe Sacharaphic Counselor, that's the Super Universe level. And then we have the Archangel of Translations, and that's the Archangel that's responsible for beings being translated from this planet or any planet to the first Morancha sphere, right? Translations, what does that mean? That means they fused with their adjuster and been translated to the Morancha sphere, right? And Omniafem, which is a super angel on the super universe level, right? It could be, I may have just told y'all wrong. That could be the paradise level, but I'd have to look it up to be sure.
And hey, Roger, the word Mansonia just means mansion ward, correct?
Right, right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's keep going. Here.
4. The fourth stage of light and life. On the worlds, the Trinity teacher sons appear in new roles. Assisted by the creature trinitized sons, so long associated with their order, they now come to the worlds as volunteer counselors and advisors to the planetary sovereign and his associates. Such couples, Paradise Havona Trinitatis sons and Ascender Trinitatis sons, represent differing universe viewpoints and diverse personal experiences which are highly serviceable to the planetary rulers.
Okay, so the Trinitatis sons are of Paradise or super universe origin, right? The Ascender Trinitatis sons are beings like us that's been Trinitized. So you get both a deity opinion or viewpoint and a mortal ascending viewpoint between the two, right? And so it says here they're highly serviceable to the planetary rulers because you come from both up, down, and down, up, right? Both directions. When they give advice, they give the whole gamut to the planetary rulers.
We got different points of view
Different points of view.
from experience.
Yeah, if you came from Paradise, you have advice that's different than if you came from the planet, right? Because one is an experiential, the other is a natural, born with information, right?
That's good. Sort of like yin yang. I like it.
Yin and the yang, yeah, you could say that. Okay, at any time after this age, the planetary Adam and Eve can petition the sovereign creator's son for release from planetary duties in order to begin their paradise ascent. Or they can remain on the planet as directors of the newly appearing order of increasingly spiritual society composed of advanced mortals striving to comprehend the philosophic teachings of the Finaliters portrayed by the brilliant evening stars, who are now assigned to these worlds to collaborate in pairs with the Sekanophim from the headquarters of the super universe. So we're talking about a very advanced society here, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the Adam and Eve that had been here for hundreds of thousands of years can petition the sovereign creator son. Who would that be? That would be Michael in our point, right? So they petition Michael for release so they can start their paradise ascent, right? Because they have other beings that can take their place at that point. Okay? Okay. Tim, would you take the next one?
The Finaliters are chiefly engaged in initiating the new and supermaterial activities of society, social, cultural, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual. As far as we can discern, they will continue this ministry far into the seventh epoch of evolutionary stability. When possible, then they may go forth to minister in outer space, whereupon we conjecture their places may be taken by absonite beings from paradise.
Why would they take their place from paradise, absonite beings? So that the absoniters can gain experience as an experiential being, right? Absoniters are not born with experience, right? They're born closer to perfect. So they gain this experience as they come out. And at that point, they believe that the Finaliters will start working in the outer space levels, right? That's being prepared now. Okay, I want to mention one other thing. It says here, the very first sentence, initiating the new and supermaterial activities of society, social, cultural, philosophic, cosmic, and spiritual. That is our goal as human beings, to spend our time on these 5 items. Do you see
Stan, that's
anything that says in there that we should be sitting around watching football, sitting in front of the TV? They didn't list that, did they?
no, but that's cultural.
That's a cultural thing, isn't it? But where do we spend most of our time?
Sleeping.
Sleeping, working, and watching TV, right?
You can speak for yourself, honey.
Yeah.
I don't like television.
The whole point I'm making is this is the goal of life, is to spend our life and our time in these 5 areas, right? To be a balanced human being, okay? That is my point. And we
Thank
don't,
you. That's cool.
and a lot of societies never spends time in any or all of these things, right?
So what do they want us to do?
They want us to become social, take care of our brothers and sisters, meet with them, talk to them, help them out, be of service to each other, right? Cultural, bring up our basically arts to the point where everyone can enjoy them, both physical arts, music, things like that. Cultural, cooking, things like that. Philosophic, you could spend hours and hours and hours just on philosophic. You know, what's preparing us for the future? What is this all about? How do we integrate with God and the deity? That sort of thing.
The study of this book is the study of philosophy.
That's exactly right, Millie. Cosmic, our horizons for the whole universe, the Hubble's telescope, the exploration of the space that we can see, right? Through the telescope, through mathematics, things like that. And the last one, spiritual, right? Our spiritual life, what does that include? Our religious upbringing, our religious interaction with each other, our concepts to share with one another, things like that. And these are the things that our new society, the finalators are trying to engage us in and get us to understand, right? Why would they be the ones to do that? Because they've experienced all these things as they went on their ascension plan, and they want to bring them back to humans so they can enjoy them in this life, right?
Would you say that the social society could be more like a humanitarian type of individual? So what does society mean? Did you
Well,
get that one?
we're talking about any social interaction with another human being, Tim.
Well, I think too, like, music, it definitely, refers to, to art.
Well, some of them overlap.
They
You
do
know,
overlap,
you
yeah.
can't have
Photography.
cultural without the social.
Yeah,
Right?
you can actually, because you have to mix and mingle.
Yeah, and actually the cultural you can't have without the philosophic, because you
debate, you
you
discuss.
debate, you discuss the music, you discuss art, you discuss
Over dinner. Or
yeah,
whatever.
things like that.
You know,
So they all kind of overlap
They
each
do.
other. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Roger. That was well said.
Okay.
So, like going to church sort of takes care of all this.
Going to church, in some churches it does, Roger. Some churches, I hate to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it anyway. Some churches, when you're in them, they seem like they're dead. They do the same thing over and over and over. It's so rote that they don't have an original concept ever comes up. Okay? And that's not all churches, but some churches are that way, And if you're unfortunate and you're raised in a church like that, as you grow older, you think that's what church is about, and it's not, So it just varies from church to church, right? All right. Who's up next? Millie. I think
Number
you-
5, the 5th stage of light and life. First off, before we do that, I have a hard time comprehending the concepts when they put one concept into a paragraph that is 8-9 lines long.
Yeah.
There's the paragraph that you read, Roger.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
there was
one
a, there was a
long.
colon, but from start to finish, that was one sentence, and then again, the paragraph that Tim read was one sentence. It's got some dashes and a colon, and this, but it's one sentence, and that's why you have to break it down and tell us what we just heard,
Yeah. Mhm.
because it's all together one thought, but
Yeah.
it's too long a thought for most of us.
It's like a run-on sentence, isn't it, Millie?
Oh, it is a run-on sentence.
Yeah, I can't come. I have to break the sentence down and read it in bits and pieces. to
Well,
understand.
that's the only way to understand this book too, is to break it down, whether you do it in a group or whether you do it by yourself. You have to break every concept down into the pieces so that it makes sense as a whole.
But you do an
I
excellent
took one
job
of the
of that.
classes online, which was
Yeah.
not very good, but what he recommended was you read a word or two and then you interpret those words in your head. You grasp the word and then you add some more words to it, and little bit by little bit you put that thought together, but it was practically word by word.
Yeah.
And here they give us a paragraph one sentence, which is, 75 words.
Yeah.
That's one thought, and you have to take it apart.
Yeah, to understand what the thought is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, some
Yeah.
people grasp it. That's
Yeah.
And anyway, let's go on. Number 5, the 5th stage of light and life. The readjustments of this stage of settled existence pertain almost entirely to the physical domains and are primary concerns of the master physical controllers.
Okay, so the 5th stage of light and life involves mostly the physical aspect of the planet, right? And most of those are dealt with the master physical controllers because of why? Because the master physical controllers control everything physical in the existence of our local universe, right? The planet, the solar systems, everything. Right? They keep everything going. They're the ones that keep the planets from falling into the suns normally, right? All right.
I'm glad somebody's looking after that.
Rodney.
It's important.
Yeah.
Okay, 6. The 6th stage of light and life witnesses the development of new functions of the mind circuits of the realm. Cosmic wisdom seems to become constitutive in the universe ministry of mind.
Okay, now who controls the mind circuit? The infinite spirit, right? The third person of deity, right? The mind circuits are the circuits of the infinite spirit, and in the 6th stage of light and life, there's a whole new function of this mind spirit, or this mind circuit in the realms, okay? So, it increases our cosmic wisdom, right? In each individual mind. Okay, how we fit into the whole picture, right? All right. Diane.
7. The 7th stage of light and life. Early in the 7th epoch, the Trinity Teacher Counselor of the Planetary Sovereign is joined by a volunteer advisor sent by the Ancients of Days, and later on they will be augmented by a third counselor coming from the super-universe, Supreme Executive.
Okay, remember there's 7 supreme executives that surround paradise, right? And that's what they're talking about here. By the 7th stage of light and life, okay, they send a Trinity Teacher Counselor of the Planetary Sovereign. And they also have them joined by an advisor of the Ancients of Days. That's 2 beings, right? The Trinity Teacher Counselor, the advisor sent by the Ancients of Days, and then the third counselor comes from the Super Universe Supreme Executive. That is the Supreme Executive that has its own planet of the 7 planets that surround the Isle of Paradise, right? So our Supreme Executive Counselor would be coming from where? The 7th Supreme Executive, right? Because we're in the 7th Super Universe, right? And that comes in the 7th stage of light and life. Okay? During this epoch, if not before, Adam and Eve are always relieved of planetary duties. If there is a material sun in the finaliter core, he may become associated with the mortal chief executive, and sometimes it is a Melchizedek who volunteers to function in this capacity. If the midwayer is among the finaliters, all of that order remain on the planet are immediately released. So, during the 7th stage of light and life, Adam and Eve is released, all the midwayers are gone, and they're all replaced with other personnel. Right? Tim, would you take the next one?
Upon obtaining release from their age-long assignment, the planetary Adam and Eve may select careers as follows.
You want to take the first one, Tim? Again?
1. They can secure planetary release, and from the universe headquarters, that would be Uversa, start out immediately on the Paradise career, receiving thought adjusters at the conclusion of the Morontian experience.
Isn't it interesting to get the thought adjusters at the conclusion of the Morontian experience? I thought
That's interesting.
that is interesting.
Wonder why?
We
I don't
get
know.
ours at the beginning.
Yes, it's kind of odd, isn't it?
It is odd, yeah.
All right.
Makes you wonder if we know exactly what those thought adjusters are about.
Right. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Millie, would you take the next one? Number 2. Millie?
I have to turn the speaker back on.
Oh, okay.
I only turn it on to talk, and I turn it back off. We used to have a problem with
Yeah.
speakers.
Yeah.
Very often, a planetary Adam and Eve will receive adjusters while yet serving on a world settled in light. Come time, with the receiving of adjusters by some of their imported pure vine children who have volunteered for a term of planetary service. Subsequently, they may all go to universe headquarters and there begin the Paradise career.
So it's not just one way, is it, that they receive these adjusters? Sometimes they receive them when they're still on the planet. Okay?
There seem to be lots of options
There are.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have options. You can do this or not do that. You can do the other. And other beings can do different things too. There seem to be nothing set in stone
No, but-
except that you continue looking for God the Father.
Yeah, that's right. And one thing's for sure, eventually you do receive an adjuster if you start from a physical origin, right?
Mhm.
No way around that. Rodney, go ahead and take the third one.
3. A planetary Adam and Eve may elect, as do material sons and daughters, from the system capital to go direct to the Midsonite world for a brief sojourn, there to receive their adjusters.
So
Props.
obviously Midsoniters also receive adjusters too, right? We don't know a whole lot about them, but it looks like that's the case from this. Yeah.
4, they may decide to return to the system headquarters, there for a time to occupy seats on the Supreme Court, after which service they will receive adjusters and begin the Paradise Ascent.
All right, an interesting thing about this, they're talking about the Supreme Court, but we know that Adam and Eve are working as advisors on the 24 counselors,
Or
right?
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, our Adam and Eve. So they will probably receive adjusters during this period of time, right? Especially since they're reformed defaulters, right? All right. 5, they may choose to go from their administrative duties back to their native world to serve as teachers for a season and to become adjuster indwelt at the time of transfer to the universe headquarters, right? So what they're talking about, the native world, what would that be? That would be Adventia.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
we can
Yeah. All right.
For, yeah, our Adam and Eve.
Yeah. Okay. Tim, would you take the next one?
Throughout all of these epics, the imported assisting material sons and daughters exert a tremendous influence on the progressing social and economic orders. They are potentially immortal, at least until such time as they elect to humanize, receive adjusters, and start for paradise.
Isn't this interesting? They start out immortal until they humanize. At that point, they're no longer immortal anymore until when?
Receive a thought adjuster.
They receive a thought adjuster and they fuse with that adjuster. Then they become immortal again, right? While they're on the planet in the physical form, they have to have sustenance from the tree of life, right? So it's kind of interesting how all this works.
So they're talking about an Adam and Eve, correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
On the evolutionary worlds, a being must humanize to receive a thought adjuster, All ascendant members of the mortal core of phenoliters have been adjuster indwelt and fused, except seraphim, and they are father indwelt by another type of spirit at the time of the being mustered into this core.
Okay, so the seraphim, guardian angels, right? They elect to go on the ascension. They can elect to go on the ascension plan also. But when they get to a certain point, they get a different type of fragment rather than a father fragment. Probably, I think they mentioned this in another section. They're given a fragment of the infinite spirit. Okay, just like the Trinity, you know. So kind of interesting.
So hey Roger, everybody has a guardian angel, at least one, correct?
Yes, everybody has at least one. Actually, they have a pair. Everybody. Okay.
But then there's
But
I can't remember, but it's when you do something, you make a decision. I
Yeah.
believe, then you get a second one, correct?
no, you always have a guardian angel, a pair of guardian angels, right? But you may have a pair of guardian angels in association with 100 other humans. In other words, that pair of guardian angels are looking after 100 humans, or 500 humans, or even up to 1,000. Okay, you will get your own personal pair when you reach the third psychic circle, right?
And that could happen on Urantia.
And that can happen on your ranch.
So that would be 4 total guarding you.
There'll be 4 total guardian. There's 2 seraphim and 2 cherubim. Actually, it's a sanabim and a cherubim.
Cherubim. Thank you, Roger.
Okay. Five. Let's see who's up.
I think it's me.
I think you are, Rodney.
5, the acme of material development. Mortal creatures living on a sin-stricken, evil-dominated, self-seeking, isolated world, such as Urantia,
Ouch!
Yeah.
can hardly conceive of the physical perfection, the intellectual attainment, and the spiritual development which characterizes these advanced epochs of evolution in a sinless spirit.
Now, you want to hear something interesting? These things, sin-stricken, even evil-dominated, self-seeking, these are all in the lesson on Sunday, which Jesus talks about the difference between evil, sin, and iniquity during his talk. Okay, so if you want to really learn this, you'll have to come to our Sunday meeting.
There you go.
A little advertising in there for ourselves. Okay, we will be having a meeting at the house this weekend. So, okay.
You're having a meeting at your house this Sunday?
Yes, Millie, we're going to have a meeting at the house this Sunday. Right. We will be studying paper 148 this Sunday.
It's about time.
Yeah. It is. Okay, so we'll go over these. I'm gonna wait commenting on these because Jesus says it a whole lot better than I do. You know, I'm not gonna take his fire away. Okay. You, I believe.
The advanced stages of a world settled in light and life represent the acme of evolutionary material development. On these cultured worlds, gone are the idleness and friction of the earlier primitive ages. Poverty and social inequality have all been vanished. Degeneracy has disappeared, and the delinquency is rarely observed. Insanity has practically ceased to exist, and feeble-mindedness is a rarity.
That's all the things that's on this planet right now. Right? Yeah, we have a lot of degeneracy, a lot of delinquency,
Not insanity.
a lot of insanity and feeble-mindedness, right? Yeah, a lot of idleness, and the friction between the primitive ages. We got friction everywhere, right?
So how can we make it better, Roger?
Starting to love one another and treat everybody, each other as brothers and sisters.
That's well said.
Jesus taught it the best, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Love one another as you love yourself, right? If we love each other as we love ourselves, we wouldn't do the things we do to each other, right? And that's all you can say about that. All right, the economic, social, and administrative status of these worlds is of a high and perfected order. Science, art, and industry flourish, and society is a smoothly working mechanism of high material, intellectual, and mechanism and cultural achievement. Industry has been largely diverted to serving the higher aims of such a superb civilization. The economic life of such a world has become ethical.
Means they've eliminated the fructose corn syrup in all the
Yeah, they've
products.
eliminated the greed, right? That's what it's all about, getting rid of the greed, okay? That's why society can flourish like this, is because things are manufactured and created not for profit, but for benefit of mankind at this point, right?
The pharmaceutical industry has been transformed.
The pharmaceutical industry has been transformed to something that actually helps the human.
I was watching an ad for some pharmaceutical that caused a problem, but the pharmaceutical company had created another product that would fix that problem. I thought, and they'll find a third one to correct the problem, the second one. And I thought, if there is a hell, there's a special place in hell for pharmaceutical companies.
Well, it all boils down to greed and the profit motive, right? There's a better way to run the world, not on profit, but on benefit of all human beings. That's what it boils down to. And government's the same way. Government's exactly the same thing, you know. So, all right, let's keep going. I think Tim, am I up?
I just read.
Okay. I guess I'm not then. War has become a matter of history. Isn't that interesting? There are no more armies or police forces. Government is gradually disappearing. Self-control is slowly rendering laws of human enactment obsolete. The extent of civil government and statutory regulation in an immediate state of advancing civilization is in inverse proportion to the morality and spirituality of its citizenship. Did y'all catch that?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite paragraphs. I love this.
If we're moral and we're spiritual as citizens, we don't need a police force. We don't need an army. We don't need a government taking our money and telling us what to do, because we're self-controlled at that point, right? This is what we call perfection, right? This is why they call the age of light and life like heaven, what we conceive of heaven, right?
You know, Roger, I have to comment again. It reminds me of that song Imagine by John Lennon.
Yeah, I just found the words to that. I'm going to learn that. I'm taking mandolin lessons now, and that's one of the songs I have on my list to work on. I do love that song, really.
Yeah.
Watch out, Roger doesn't.
I don't care for that song personally.
Roger has a problem with the first one.
I know, we disagree in a few areas.
Yes.
But if we don't have government, we have to have some sort of organization to decide who collects the money to build roads,
Yes, that's
to take care of bridges and the sewer systems.
that's what the world administration is supposed to be doing, right? That's what they're talking about here. The other thing about that song is the problem I have with it is that he states, what if there's no God or religion, right? And I always have a problem. When you take God out of the equation, I stop listening.
But I think
Well,
it's his
I think it
interpretation.
means capital G, capital O, capital D.
Uh-huh.
I cannot believe that John Lennon did not believe in a supreme being.
Oh, absolutely.
He just didn't
Absolutely.
want you to call him capital G, capital O, capital D, and,
Well, that's-
and break
that's
it all
talking
up into
about the
lots of
little-
religions.
Yeah,
I was
that's
talking with
his
my neighbor.
privilege.
She asked it last Sunday. What are you going to read? What did you read? And I said I can't remember the name of the thing. She said, well, your leader, is he schooled in this? I said, well, he goes to the Urantia Federation and the Urantia, whatever the other one and he listens to them. And I said, it's like the Bible. All the churches, from the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian, the Lutheran, the Methodist, the Baptist, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they all have one book,
Yeah.
the same book,
Yeah.
and they all interpret it differently.
Yeah,
And I
well,
said
they're all
the purpose
variations
of our
of the
study
same.
group is to interpret it for us, whichever way we want to see it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm sure there are other groups that are interpreting it their way too.
Yeah. Well, and I always come back to John Lennon. If we have freedom of religion, he's free to believe whatever he chooses too, you know. And he's free to sing about and write about whatever he chooses, right? That does not mean, and with that freedom, I have the freedom not to support him because of my interpretation of what he's saying.
Yeah, we just have
So,
different interpretations
that's
of
right.
what he
That's
really
right.
said in that song.
Yeah, he had some beautiful songs. He wrote some beautiful songs, but that particular one I have issues with.
Hey, Roger, would that be known as a personal religious experience when you say that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, it is. Okay, Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Schools are vastly improved and are devoted to the training of mind and the expansion of soul. The art centers are exquisite and the musical organizations superb. The temples of worship with their associated schools of philosophy and experiential religion are creations of beauty and grandeur. The open-air arenas of worship assembly are equally sublime in the simplicity of their artistic appointment.
Notice this says open air arenas of worship in this. You know, this is.
They
It's
also
like,
say experiential religion. What do they mean?
yeah. In other words, it's a religion developed from personal experience, right? In other words,
So everybody gets to talk about how they came to where they are.
that
through
not
their
only that,
experience.
Millie, but they actually go out and experience their religion by acting, by doing something for someone else, by sharing with someone else. How many times have I told y'all the way that the beings that make the decision about us is our ability to teach what we have learned, right? Even the finaliters still do that when they come back from paradise. What do? They teach others what they have learned, and they've gotten the habit of that from what? Their Marancha career, their spiritual career, the Havona career. The whole thing is you have to teach what you know, and the way they know what you know is how you teach it, right? Why do y'all think I do this? I'm reinforcing the fact I'm teaching what I have learned personally. I'm no genius, I'm just teaching what I know about it, right? And that's what we all need to do in our daily lives. And opportunities comes along in our lives all the time to teach this book. You don't even have to mention this book to share with someone else a concept from it, right?
That's what we're ministers.
So,
That's
hey,
what it
Roger, when
means.
you say personal religious experience, it's something that's personal, but then when you say experiential religion, it's something completely different. It's the opportunity to
It's-
go out.
No, it's religion that you've experienced yourself, right?
So if you have an individual, let's say he's got 4 great religions, he picks and takes what he feels is truthful, and then he creates pretty much his own beliefs. I can take the Adam, I can take the Eve, let's take Yahweh, make him a father, and pretty much create my own religion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that this did say about experiential religion, these are schools of.
That's
So
right.
people are teaching.
They are teaching them, right?
Yeah, they're teaching.
And I'm sure there's lots of discussions too.
Yeah, it's
I'm sure there
it's
is.
religious concepts and thoughts you've learned from experience, right? This is what we teach in these classes we have each Wednesday and on Sundays. We're teaching what we have learned experience-wise from this book, right? The lessons from the book. The best concept of that is the life of Christ. You cannot, I always come back to the Jesus Papers. You cannot read the Jesus Papers and listen to Jesus speak without learning exactly what he's saying. Okay? And the interesting part is it teaches us in such a way that the Bible almost seems obsolete because it gives us the whole picture, right? And then when people say, you know, I don't know if y'all remember when I first started teaching about 4 years ago, we used the references to the Bible over and over. We'd read every one of them. You remember when I was doing that? Trying to make the connection between the scriptures and what Jesus teaches in the Urantia book, right? And finally one day I realized that the fourth part of the book is part of the revelation, just like the cosmology is in the first part of the book, part of the revelation. So if this is a revelation, it's new, it's fresh, it's current, then we need to be teaching what's new and fresh and current, and not keep going back to try and reinforce these that we're pulling to us from the Old Testament and New Testament. They need to experience the revelation just like we do, right? They need to read it and study it and make their own decision.
So, hey, Roger, when it comes down to this revelation that we're reading, it's not just something that was invented by a man,
No.
but given to us from the revelators, and they're sharing what they know to be truths because they live in a reality different from ours.
Right.
So, where does it get dangerous when you talk about personal religious experience?
Where does it get dangerous? I don't think it
Organized religions or...
No. I don't think it ever gets dangerous as long as you're open-minded and allow concepts from everyone. Let me read y'all something. You want to talk about, and I'm going to stand in front of this camera here because I have to get close to another computer. I have like 6 computers going. I want to read you this from the next. It's tacked on the end of the very next paper, right? Which is paper 56, Universal Unity. It says, next to the last paragraph, presented by a mighty messenger visiting on Urantia by request of the Nebadon Revelatory Corps, and in collaboration with a certain Melchizedek, the vicegerent planetary prince of Urantia. We know that's Macavential Melchizedek. Now, the next paragraph. This paper on universal unity is the 25th of a series of presentations by various authors, having been sponsored as a group by a commission of Nebadon personalities. We know that Nebadon is the name of our local universe. Numbering 12 and acting under the direction of Mantusha Melchizedek. We edited these narratives and put them in the English language by a technique authorized by our superiors, so they even have superiors, in the year of 1934 of Urantia time. So what does that tell us? That means that the first 2 sections of the book, and we're fixing to finish the second section of the book, right? The first 2 sections of the book were put together by a group of 12 beings from Nebadon that were assigned to reveal this information to us. Okay? So that's basically where it came from. You know, people say, well, where's this stuff came from? Well, you can tell them it came from a group of 12 beings assigned by Macavential Melchizedek. They should know who that is from the Old Testament. To reveal God's plan to us. Right? So if you truly believe this is a revelation, is anything more accurate? No. You don't need to keep going back to the Old Testament. You don't need to keep going back to the New Testament. Everything is in this book. Okay? This is the new revelation. The 5th epical revelation of God to man. Right? Anyway, I'm preaching again now.
But we also mentioned individuals like Joseph Smith, which was the founding father of the
Mormons.
Yeah, the Mormons, and then Mohammed, peace be upon him.
Okay, but Tim, have you read the Book of Mormon? Have you
know,
read?
not all of it, and I haven't read all of the Quran, but
Have you read the
Eventually-
Doctrine and Covenants that goes along with the Book of Mormon?
Yes, and the Pearl of Great Price, and then
Mm-hmm. See,
right, I
all of
haven't
these.
read all of it, but
It-
it does read like our Old Testament, or like the prophets
Of
in
course
the Old
it
Testament.
does. Of course it
He's
does.
prophesying. But see, then a lot of it, when it came to Joseph's, there were things in there, where he said, Brigham would point to the moon, it's a planet, there's people living on it, and they took that out.
Yeah.
There's certain things that he said that they took out because it didn't make any sense.
Well, we're not here to criticize other people's
Exactly.
religion,
So you're
but
criticize.
yes, I have read the Book of Mormon. I have read the Doctrine and Covenants. I have read the Quran. I have read all these things, and I guarantee you they don't compare to this revelation.
Right, I'm just trying to get a picture where, you're comparing because it's personal religious experience.
Yes.
That's
Well,
where
all of us
yeah.
Well, it's based on a lot of
hold on
research.
to- We
Yeah.
all want to hold on to Abraham, to
Yeah.
David, to Daniel, all the stories in the Old Testament that we grew up with. We all want to hang on to them.
All of these have something. All of these have nuggets of truth in all of them. Every single one of them. Okay. They all have beautiful stories. They all have nuggets of truth. They all have things about the concept of man's relationship with God. Right.
And all of these books that we've just talked about, and I'll say it again, including this one, came through the hand of man.
Yes. Everything does. There's no other way to get it here. Right. None of it.
There's errors in all of it.
That's right.
But for the most updated truth, and if you want a history about the earth and you want, an eyewitness to Jesus, his life, you can read the Urantia Papers. That's why we
Yeah.
have it, right?
That's right.
This whole book makes more sense to me
You're
than
right.
any other religious endeavor I have participated in my 73 years.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And there's no way around it. It makes more sense than anything I've ever read anywhere. You know?
I think what you're saying, I think this is the point, is that in the last 4 years you have evolved as a result of teaching,
Yes.
because it's reinforced what you believe, based on the Urantia book, and it continues to grow and evolve
Every day.
every day. But as you teach what you learn and study and research and all the previous experiences you've had in your religion, seeking the truth, it's brought you to this point right here.
Yeah.
You know.
And with every time we teach and every time we go through another paper, even though I've read this who knows how many times,
Since 1973.
since 1973, over and over and over and over.
Isn't it
and
56 years, Roger?
Yeah.
He's
Well,
not that old.
53?
the point is, the more you read it, the more you absorb, and the more the understanding and the pieces all come together. When I first started reading the book, it was a mishmash of concepts. It was a concept here, a concept there. I learned this, I learned that. The thing that benefited me the most was the life of Christ, because he speaks so plainly to us. But by studying the first part of the book over and over and over, the pieces start to come together. And as the pieces come to get together, you get a concept of the whole. And we're talking about the whole book. Is this all there is? No. When we get to the Urantia worlds, we'll probably have things we can't even conceive of yet, right? But by studying it over and over, it gives us a concept of the whole of this revelation to this planet, to this individual, and it can do the same for each person.
And
right?
still, it still is the determining factor is the fact that you're teaching all of the information you've learned through the years.
Yes.
And so the teaching aspect is the
Reinforces it.
reinforces it,
Right.
and that's what we are commissioned to do as finalators.
Right.
Is that we teach and evolve. We continue to evolve even after
we don't
reach
ever
parent-
stop learning.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
ongoing
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Let's get through a couple more paragraphs here so we can have a stopping place for the night. Tim, would you take the next one? Because I don't remember who's.
It's me.
Oh, Millie, would you take the next?
The provisions for competitive play, humor, and other phases of personal and group achievement are ample and appropriate. The special feature of the competitive activities on such a highly cultured world concern the efforts of individuals and groups to excel in the science and philosophies of cosmology, literature and oratory flourish, and language is so improved as to be symbolic of concepts as well as to be expressive of ideas. Life is refreshingly simple. Man has at last coordinated a high state of mechanical development with an inspiring intellectual attainment and has overshadowed both with an exquisite spiritual achievement. The pursuit of happiness is an experience of joy and satisfaction.
So we're on a level that's so high above where we're living today, it's almost inconceivable for us to think about, right? Okay, I believe I'm going to stop here for tonight. We're going through this very slow, I know, but we've got off on a couple of tangents here tonight.
I knew when I went through this before we started studying it, it was going to take longer than 1 or 2 meetings.
Yeah,
it's very complicated. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, there really is. And the next one is just, every paper is so wonderful. I keep saying it.
Absolutely.
The Unity one is just amazing. I was working on the slides for it today a little bit. So, okay, let's have a little prayer and we'll quit for tonight. I think I'll close this out in prayer tonight. Father, thank you for this opportunity to come together and serve each other and discuss these things with each other and grow individually and as a group. We thank you for the ability to have the computer and Skype for us to being able to do this through this, and we thank you for the mechanical ability to record these and bring these to folks at home so they can watch them later. We pray that you'll bless this group and continue your support of us and our ministry, and we pray that you will open our hearts and minds to others and others' opinions and their concepts also. We thank you and we give you the praise, and your will be done in your Son's name, Jesus, Michael and Nebuchadnezzar. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us at home. Please come see us again next time.